Hey everyone, welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be my Game Week 10 team selection as we look ahead towards a crucial week where a lot of people are going to be making power plays around premiums in FPL. This is one of the interesting weeks where finally Haaland is no longer, I would say, the sort of dominant captaincy when it comes to the next 2 to 3 game weeks. And as we've seen, as unfortunately a Haaland owner for the last 2 weeks, we've lost out anyways, right? Some of the other premiums have outscored Haaland extremely heavily every game week. It feels like the alternative captain has outscored him, but that's life in FPL sometimes. Even when you look at fixtures and the amount of chances Haaland has had, that him sort of underperforming can happen, and other players overperforming just because they're so good equally can happen too. So as we consider this fixture run ahead, I mentioned how Salah was objectively maybe, at least per sort of expected points models and even odds models, for example, a better captaincy, and I'm still definitely considering that move as per my transfer plans. Before we jump into the video though, I'd love to shout out Fantasy Football Hub. You can have a look at their expected points model. You can also have a look at suggested transfers from them and a lot of other FPL tools that will help you increase your rank as an FPL manager. It also helps simplify your decision making and gets you access to advanced data. And as I said, a lot of planners, like for example, Ben Crellin's Planner 2, that can actually help you with your experience in planning ahead, even when looking at your team and having a team planner like that. So before we jump into my Game Week 10 team selection, I'll just quickly recap Game Week 9. I had 61 points, very, very minuscule sort of 100k rank rise, moved from around 1.94 million in the world to 1.84. Still not good enough, unfortunately. And I do feel like Son missing out last week was crucial to why the Game Week didn't end up being going so well. And another part of that is the big doms in my team have been really poor. I did mention my transfer plans that I still wanted to give them the chances like the Southampton game and the Ipswich game, but we'll find out more as far as Solanke and updates on him, other updates on Son as well, because that can have huge impacts on the game. Between Gabriel and Guardiola, we also found out that they had knocks from the AFL Cup and also the Liverpool match, but it seems like I think at least 1 out of 2 of them are probably going to be fit for the weekend. Lewis and Davis, totally safe. Davis actually getting an assist, but still only getting 2 points. And Lewis showing sort of the value of a Man City defender over the course of the season. We're still expecting them to get good clean sheets. And then his minutes have been really, really good because of the injuries that City have had, and also just his general performance levels have been really high. Flecken has been extremely disappointing, but I tend to never use free transfers on goalkeepers. So that's sort of my thoughts on Flecken. As far as the midfield, I've got Mbumo, Palmer, and Rodgers who played because Son clearly didn't come on to sort of play. Rodgers actually was subbed off really early, and I think a lot of people are stepping into a period now where they're considering whether Rodgers and his minutes are really fragile. And I totally understand that sentiment because he's still going to be involved in Champions League games going forward. Whilst they were knocked out in the AFL Cup, which I think is generally a bonus, and he didn't play there, which means that his minutes on the weekend should be good. The general concern is with the amount of depth that Aston Villa have, there's going to be some games where Rodgers will be rotated just simply due to sort of managing his physical recovery and his fatigue. He's also been involved, unfortunately, on international breaks with U21 games for England. So that can also sort of add to that fatigue as well. And Mbumo just completely great. Still really good fixtures ahead. Nothing to say there. Same with Palmer in that the fixtures for the next 2 aren't very good, but Palmer is still an incredible FPL option. And part of the reason why I did that hit for him 2 weeks ago was I really felt like he had once again sort of taken another step up as a player, or at least within this Chelsea team, who have taken a step up on attack. And as the sort of main talisman of this team, we've seen his underlying stats boost up. And I've also seen that a lot of his baselines on models and even projected odds numbers have also increased too, which shows you how good Palmer is as of the season. As far as the forward line, Haaland has been disappointing, but you still would give him, I think, the captaincy in most of these fixtures, unfortunately, and it just hasn't really gone our way. But there's nothing that says going counter to the best option in your team is going to continue to produce consistent dividends for you. My way of playing is still going to be, in theory, maximizing the amount of points projected for my team and based on sort of my understanding of minutes around the league, my tactical understanding of things like that. So I'm happy that I captained Haaland for most weeks, except for the one where I did feel like there was a bit of free risk on the Saka versus Leicester game and the Southampton one, but I crucially went for Haaland both weeks in a bit of a defensive move. As far as Calvert-Lewin and Solanke, terrible for different reasons. Calvert-Lewin hasn't been converting chances, but that's sort of true to his nature. As I said previously in another video, he does miss quite a fair few chances, but it's not like he's completely incapable and allergic to scoring. So he's still going to have value over green fixtures. Has he been completely and utterly devastated by Wood? and almost every other forward in the game, including his own, I guess, substitute forward in Beto? Yes, he has, but that's FPL for you sometimes. And also just the nature of results. He will still score eventually, and I hope to be there when Calvert-Lewin does. And if he doesn't, he'll probably be binned in the future for someone like João Pedro down the line, or even Raul Jimenez. As far as Solanke, he's been even shocking, right? Because at 7.7 million, we expect a little bit more from him. He's had good enough fixtures to provide value. And even though he did provide a bit of value around the Brentford and United games, ultimately, I'm okay with, unfortunately, having Solanke in the team up until Ipswich at home. There did seem to be some concerns about, his fitness after the EFL Cup game. I'm not too worried about it. I think he was just extremely tired. I don't think he's carrying an injury, which some people suggested on the football Twitter timeline. But I think he'll still play the next 2 games because he is crucial to the team, and I still don't think there's an injury there with Solanke. But a Game Week 12 transfer for the likes of Solanke or Son, if I keep both of these players for this game week, is definitely on the cards for me. Now, let's quickly jump into my team selection. Before we jump into my team selection, I think the easiest thing to do is to have a look at Rob TFPL's sort of presentation of what we can expect from the fixtures from an odds point of view. So this week, in terms of clean sheets, nothing exceptionally high. Last week, we had Man City with a 50% clean sheet versus Southampton. This week, the games are extremely packed, a lot closer. A lot of the teams between 20 to 30% tops. Man City still high up there. Liverpool still high up there. Arsenal still reasonably high up there. But it's not very good, right? Nottingham Forest with a good fixture. Ipswich with a good fixture as well. And then a couple other call-outs would be Fulham, for example. But that's really it. When I look at my own team, it's a reluctant play to play Flecken. As you said, I'm not really going to talk about Flecken because he's just a very simple play. I play him regardless. But in defense, there's a couple questions to be asked. I think with Gabriel actually not having the best of clean sheet odds, and Leif Davis still someone that I think is very attacking, I'm still going to take the opportunity here to probably go with Leif Davis here in what should be a very attacking game for Ipswich. And I do think that with his underlying stats, I'm still tempted to play him over Gabriel. So I'll be playing Leif Davis this week. And then I'll be playing Lewis as Enrico Lewis this week. And with Man City's having slightly better clean sheet odds anyways compared to Arsenal, I think I'm benching Gabriel this week almost as if he was the first defender on the bench. I'll still play Dibbling over him probably on the bench, or Rodgers depending who I transfer out, but Lewis and Guardiola will play. There was a report of Guardiola needing to be looked at after the EFL Cup game, but I still feel like he's either going to play or sort of be fine for the game and start, or he's going to be unfit and Ake will play potentially ahead of him in place, and someone like Akanji will be back for the weekend playing maybe either a central back or a right center back role for this Man City team. So that's sort of my thoughts on why I'll play Guardiola first over Gabriel, because I think they both equally have some doubts. Press conferences can definitely clear things up, but at this moment in time, I'm still comfortable with having both players in my team. Worst case scenario, one thing I have been considering is that I still plan on making 2 free transfers this week outside of my defense. But if there really is absolutely no way that Guardiola and Gabriel play this weekend, I will consider the idea of taking a -4 for Trent. Now, this is ironic, and I'm sure a lot of people will laugh at the idea because I took a -4 a few weeks ago to get out of Trent. But this time, at least, I guess I'm not also selling Palmer in the process. So this would be a team with Palmer and Trent, and that's because I've farmed quite a fair few price rises. My team value is very strong. I don't really mind going into Trent for a -4 if I'm 100% confident that Guardiola and Gabriel can't really deliver for me in the next few weeks. But as I said, I think everything should be fine between the two of them, and I'll get some value out of one of my defenders. In the midfield, moving on to that, given that we sort of looked at some of the sort of goal scoring metrics as well, projected for the weekend, Liverpool quite high up there and higher than Man City. And even though Haaland tends to have more goal share than, let's say, the likes of Salah, this clearly intimates that this is a very, very good Salah captaincy week, and part of the swing is also the home and away impact of Haaland playing versus Bournemouth away, maybe the weakness of the Man City team with a lot of the players out for the while, and for Salah's case, still a very much full strength Liverpool team for the time being, and his minutes being really good coming off, and a rest for the EFL Cup game where he played only 20-30 minutes compared to Haaland's 0. So I am planning to bring Salah into the team. I am planning to start Son and hoping that he's ready to start versus Aston Villa at home, hoping that Ange will give me that confirmation. I will defer to sort of dropping Rodgers or Dibbling onto the bench. I don't really, I guess, need to make a decision specifically on whether Rodgers or Dibbling goes out for Salah. But for now, I will assume that Rodgers will be the first of my bench. Dibbling will be going out for the team, and Salah will come in his place. And Mbeumo and Palmer will just stick within the team here, in place. In the forward positions, I will be going with Calvert-Lewin, Solanke, and Cunha. Now, as I said, with the big DOMs, they do look absolutely terrible, but I still think that there's a couple transfers later down the line that I can look towards. João Pedro, certainly for Calvert-Lewin, around game week 13, 14 time. For Solanke, game week 12, I think there's a really, really nice option to move into Isak or Jackson there. And maybe we can even reconsider what the situation is with someone like Darwin or Havertz as well. Those are options and a lot of players around that price point that I can easily move to with a little bit of excess funds. However, there's also the question of Son and maybe whether I want to make the move from Son to Saka then. So I will just prioritize one of the Spurs players going out of my team in the future in game week 12. And it probably still is going to be Solanke first because I don't love him right now and how he's playing, even though he's very clearly crucial to the way that Spurs play. Just not so much in terms of the goal scoring side of things. As far as the rest of my team in terms of the bench, Valdemarsson, Dibbling, Gabriel, and Dunk will sit on my bench for this week. And the captaincy will very, very clearly go towards Mo Salah and the vice captaincy going towards Palmer. Palmer doesn't have the best of fixtures in that it's an away fixture. And as we've given credit to a United team, for example, this season, they've probably still looked better on defense than they have on offense. However, I guess if you wanted to make a one-game sample size look at Ruud van Nistelrooy's tenure as assistant manager, they're probably a little bit more attack-sided now and a little bit less defense-sided, given that they conceded to a very, very weak Leicester team, but then scored plenty of goals as well, with, I think, the help of Leicester, to be honest, once again, as I said, fielding a really poor team versus Man United. A lot of people will be thinking over the next few weeks, whether to go towards United players. I think generally within my team, I don't have plans per se to go into Bruno. I don't have necessarily a spot for Garnacho either, so I'm not really planning to make moves over there, but I'm certainly considering that my defense might need a little bit of help moving along the line. And if I go for, let's say, the Dibbling move, I'll still have around 1 million in the bank to make a move out of Leif Davis. Leif Davis doesn't necessarily have any good fixtures for this Ipswich team after game week 10. There is a pretty good run in 13, 14, 15, but 11 and 12, he's pretty unplayable. So I do find that could be an opportunity for me to simply play Dalot, whilst Gabriel also doesn't have a good fixture because he's playing versus Chelsea away, where I'm also expecting him to lose his clean sheet. So there could be some value from simply going out of Davis into Dalot. I could even stretch towards Porro if there's sort of no changes in terms of price, and I can still lock myself into Ipswich at home with a triple up of Spurs for that crucially nice game. So those are my thoughts right now in terms of my Game Week 10 team selection. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you'd like to support the video and also see some of my other projects, I also have a podcast running with my co-host, Schadenfreudes. It's a little bit more analytics focused. We do talk about expected value and things like that. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about analytics and sort of how to play and how to visualize the game from an analytics point of view, do have a look at the FPL script on YouTube. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful game week ahead with many, many green arrows to come. In terms of, let's say, what I would plan to do if I had more injuries confirmed tomorrow with the press conferences, I think that if Son was out, I would still be going, instead of going out of Rodgers and Dibbling, I'd probably just still go Haaland to Cunha and still go Son to Salah is probably my move, and I'd just play someone like Rodgers. I might even be convinced to take a hit in this situation and maybe make, for example, one of the moves to, let's say, someone like Trent. I could also consider a simple move of, let's say, still going from Dibbling to Salah and actually going from Son to Saka as well. If Solanke, for whatever reason, is confirmed to be out, I think my move is probably just to sort of play Dibbling in place of him, and hopefully he's back for Ipswich at home. But clearly, if he's out for the long term, I will probably be looking at an option of maybe Solanke to Isak as well as a move, because I generally like Isak as a future transfer for Solanke anyways, and even though his fixtures aren't good in the next two in terms of Isak, I don't really mind that move because, as I said, it's sort of preventing a future move, and it also means I don't really have any moves to make unless he gets injured later down the line. But with Callum Wilson out for November, probably struggling to get back to full fitness for quite a while, I do think that Isak's minutes are very strong. I also can't see him really losing minutes out to Wilson anyways. We've seen them play together in a tandem. So I think Isak is still a very, very strong pick for the time to come. So those are the kind of the options and the sort of players that I'm thinking about if I have more aggressive injury issues. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care and goodbye.